In this video, I discussed how to properly use the rule of 72 to determine the time it takes to double your investment. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
I've got a question for you. If you could get a 10% return on your investment, would you prefer that over a 5% return? A lot of you are saying, Jeff, seriously, of course I prefer 10 over 5. I asked this question, and the reason we're going to go through a few points before we get into the use of the rule of 72 is that a return is highly visible. If someone says that your expected return is 20%, 15%, 10%, 5%, your mind automatically starts spinning that return even though you haven't achieved it yet. But what people rarely talk about is the second element, which is the risk associated with a 20% return versus a 10% return or a 5% return. The fact is, risk is invisible, whereas the return is a number on a piece of paper that's very visible. But if you were to receive a 20% return on a home that you bought for rental real estate, that you actually had to put quite a bit of work into to maintain for your tenants, 20% might seem like a reasonable number because not only are you getting the return on your capital, but you're putting in sweat equity, so to speak, as well. But what about 20% return on a hedge fund investment? If someone came up to you and they said, hey, I've got this great hedge fund investment and it's almost guaranteed to pay 20%. Would you feel the same way about that investment that you would about your rental real estate? Well, I hope not, but I think it's important to point out, especially in this day and age, that the return, the advertised return, isn't necessarily the return that you're going to receive. In fact, the bigger the number, the higher the risk. And unless someone's well trained to analyze the risk, they go blindly into an investment and often they lose their money. This happens very often when a friend calls another friend and he has an idea. That's the most common way someone loses money. But also, and more insidiously, when you get that phone call from the stranger who promises you a 20% return in 2 or 3 months, and they'll give you a list of people who will vouch for them without explaining to you the actual mechanics on how to get that return. So returns do have a limitation because unless you know with a high degree of certainty how that money is generated, be very wary of the promise of a high return. But there is something else that's invisible that's actually pretty easy to determine, which is if you can manage the risk, how long does it actually take to double the investment? If I'm 20 and I put my money in an investment and it gets a 10% return, in my mind, that's great. If I'm 55 or 65 or 75 and it receives a 10% return, I have less life ahead of me than that 20-year-old, so I want to know, for example, how long it might take to double in case I wanted to give it to my heirs. So this video will take the invisible and make it very visible. So let's talk about the rule of 72. If you have a $100 investment and it gets a 10% return, at the end of the year, it's worth $110. That becomes the starting point for next year. So you take $110 and you invest it, and at the beginning of the year after that, the starting point's $121. So your number goes up every year a little bit more based on the previous year's ending number. The good news is that as the number grows, the value goes up exponentially. The bad news is that it's almost impossible to calculate in your head. You actually need a spreadsheet. But the rule of 72 is a great way to determine with reasonable accuracy how long it will take to double your investment. So how does the rule of 72 work? It's very simple. You take 72 and you divide it by the return on the investment and you take out the percentage sign. So for example, if you had a 6% return, you divide 72 by 6 and the number is 12. It takes 12 years to double your investment at 6%. If your return was 8%, you divide 72 by 8 and it takes 9 years to double your investment. And if you had a 10% return, you divide 72 by 10 and it takes 7.2 years to double. Now, how accurate is the rule of 72? Well, as you can see from this spreadsheet, it's pretty accurate. At 6%, the actual time to double isn't 12 years, it's 11.9 years. The actual time to double the 8% return is 9 years. Spot on, using the rule of 72. And the actual time to double a 10% return isn't 7.2 years, it's 7.25 years. So you can use this tool, it's quite accurate. You can impress friends and family. If something looks too good to be true, if the doubling time is too quick, well, just remember the point on risk. It's invisible unless you're trained to understand the risk. So before you commit any capital to any investment, whether it's a low return or a high return, make sure you fully understand your risk of losing your money or losing part of your money. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications so that you get alerted the next time I post a video. I post about twice a week. Also, check out this video on what to do if you're age 60 and you have no retirement savings. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.